Hello, everybody, and welcome this afternoon at Barcelona at the TechEd. I'm sorry we had to stop Dolly Parton, and I hope I can replace her for the next 75 minutes. Our topic is Broaden Your Active Directory Horizon, Linux Authentication. To be fair, that's not the original title that I suggested for the session. My idea was Windows and Linux, just good friends. But they thought about bringing something in with authentication and Active Directory, so we picked that title. My name is Ralph Wiegand. I'm an MVP for Windows Server Systems Directory Services. I come from the University of Karlsruhe, which is in the southern part of Germany, the more beautiful part of Germany. Okay, we'll argue that later. And I want to present you for the next 75 minutes what you have to do to add Linux clients to an Active Directory. And I can tell you it's so easy. I just wonder why not everybody is doing this. Of course, the better choice would be to buy an XP. That's why we're here at the Microsoft conference, for sure. But I had to say that. They punished me. The thing is, sometimes you cannot migrate. Sometimes you have political aspects. Sometimes you have just users that are used to their desktop, and they will get less productive if they change their desktop, even if if the system bring them more benefits for getting more productive. So in some cases, you just have to stay on your Linux machine. So this session is about how to use authentication, central authentication, to join a domain with a Linux computer. That's it. I have this remote control here. Which is not working. Yes, it does. Okay. If you've been in an IDA session so far, you saw that these 5 areas are covered with the IDA tracks, and we are right here down. The ADDS, formerly known as Active Directory, and the ADLES, Lightweight Directory Services, formerly known as ADAM. Okay, so the session prerequisites is you should have an Active Directory domain. Sure you have. Okay, you should have a Linux client, otherwise what to attach to a directory system. And you want to consolidate your account management. You want to start with an easy to implement solution. There are a lot of products out there, I know. Even Microsoft has a lot of products in that area. But as I said, I just wanted to show you an easy to implement solution. This is not the answer to everything, although I have about 42 slides, which is just by random. This is just one solution. You see, there are others out there that might fit your needs more. This is the one that I present here. So if you found yourself, stay here. Otherwise, you might stay here too, and just enjoy the session. These are the 3 areas that we will cover. We have a name resolution with LDAP, so that I can use all the user attributes on one central place, which is the Active Directory, of course. We'll cover authentication with Kerberos from the Linux side to the Windows side and the other way around. And we'll do some file sharing with Samba. That's where the other way around comes in. And the goal of the session is to land just here in the middle. That's where we want to go. So if you stay up to the end, you'll be in the middle. Be sure. What do we need? Of course, we need an Active Directory. We already cleared out that you have one. We need an LDAP, Lightweight Directory Access Protocol. You have this because you have an Active Directory. We need a Kerberos. You have this because you have an Active Directory. You need the Kerberos clients and the LDAP clients on the Linux side. And maybe you need Samba. Maybe you don't need it, and what it is, just wait a while. I'll explain it. So this is our agenda to go. From left to right. First, we have to check the schema and give Linux read access to our Active Directory. So the dark ones are the ones that you have to do only once with your Active Directory. The light blue ones is you have to fill attributes. Of course, you have to fill in attributes somewhere. If it's an identity management system or it's the Active Directory directly, doesn't matter. You have to fill attributes. Then the next part is on the Linux side. You have to configure name resolution so that your Linux client knows where to get the information from the user. You have to configure Kerberos. That's an easy part. I'll show you. And then to join the domain. That's a little bit tricky, but I'll guide you through this. And last but not least, you can log in on your Linux client. So let's start with the first one. We check the schema. The schema, what the schema is, I don't think I have to repeat it. Huh? It's just what kind of objects are allowed, what attributes an object must have, may have, and how those attributes look like. Is it an integer, is it a string, is it a distinguished name, or something like that. If you have a Windows Server 2003 R2 domain controller in your forest, your schema is ready. You don't have to do anything. Because when you install Windows Server 2003 R2, there's a schema update which make it RFC 2307 compliant. If you have an older, those old systems like Windows Server 2003, even older, you have to install the schema update from the Services for Unix 3.5, which is free for download. So it's just a one-time task, and if you have some fears about schema updates, there's another session from Ulf, which is also an MVP from Germany, doing a schema session here. It doesn't matter which domain or forest mode you have, I just don't care. Yeah. So that's it. Check schema, finished. You see, it's so easy. Yeah? We already finished the first part. Let's go for the second part. Give Linux read access. Why is this? Because your systems, when you're on an XP client as a member of a domain and try to contact the Active Directory, you're acting as an authenticated user. Of course, you're already logged in. So read access to all the attributes and objects in an Active Directory is restricted to authenticated users. When a Linux client comes on, there's no chance of authenticating before because it's not a member of a domain. Not so far, but later on. How to do this? There are two ways. The first one is on the left side, you create a user, put in a member of domain guess, that it should be sufficient, and you put the user and the password in a config file on your Linux system. The bad thing is that this config file is readable for every user. Well, it's not that bad, because the user has to authenticate on the machine, and therefore he's a member of the Active Directory. So he's already authenticated when he reads this information. But, well, some policies might restrict you in your company, so there's another way. You can enable anonymous read access, or enable anonymous read permissions. That means you go there and say, it's okay if anonymous comes and wants some information from my LDAP. There are a few things you should keep in mind if you do this. First is you might have a firewall around, so you might block the LDAP port from outside. So just that your company gets this information anonymous. The other one is you can define it on a level of an organizational unit. So this does not mean that your whole Active Directory is readable by anonymous. It's just the organizational unit that you do it. And the good thing is you don't need a special user, no password visible. Yeah? How to do this? If you go to an organizational unit, right-click, say Properties, Security, and add the Anonymous and give him read access, it doesn't work. It will show you that Anonymous has read access, but actually Anonymous has no read access because there's a security flag that blocks it. So you have to set this flag or unset the flag, and it's called IDA406, and it's a very easy way to find. You go to ADSI Edit, which comes with the support tools. Yeah? That's the Active Directory Geek version of Active Directory using computers. You go to the Configuration, Context, Services, Windows NT, Directory Services, and there you find the property IDA406. That was easy, yeah? And now comes the tricky part. You have to set this to 000002. If you're interested why it's just that number, just come in front, I'll explain it to you. But just do it. You have to do it once, and that's it. It does not set anonymous read permissions, to make that clear. It just allows you to do so. That's a forest-wide setting, by the way, because it's a configuration container. So then you go to your organizational unit, and then you give anonymous read access. And if you use inheritance, it will be inherited through all your tree part under your organizational unit. That's it. You see a screenshot from the ADSI edit. I'll show you in the demo later how to do this. So I go over the slide. And there we have Linux read access. Still very easy. Huh? No? Yes. The question was, by the way, we have a Q&A session at the end, but no problem if it's here. The question was, can I go back? When I did this once, can I go back? No, you cannot. And every time you access an object, first the ACL and the global flag is checked, so it has to be on 002. Okay, so filling attributes. Why this? I have a lot of attributes in my Active Directory, but unfortunately Linux needs a UID. It's like a Windows SID, but less complex. It goes from 0 to 65,000 something. On some systems it goes higher. You might synchronize it. Yes, God, I'm German speaking, I told you. Synchronize it over an identity management system like the ILM, which you might have a look, another session about that. Or you fill them in manually. It depends on how many users you have, or if you want to set in such a good but complex system. You can use ADSI edit, you had it just open, so enter the numbers. You can use a script. You can use a GUI in Active Directory users and computers that installs when you install the NIST server from the Services for Unix. You get an extra tab on the user properties saying Unix attributes, and you can fill in them. Or you install the identity management for Unix role in the server 2008, and you get the same GUI there. I'll show you how to do it with a script, and this is the script. It's very easy. And on those part where the dots are, you can set some more attributes here, but it's just a small VB script. And you can use other tools. There are a lot of DS query, DS add, DSRM tools, so that's quite easy. I think you see what I'm doing here. It's just I connect to a server and to a special object here. Take the properties of the user and add a UID number. That is the one that Unix expects. Do some more stuff here, like setting a home directory, for example, on the Unix side or so, or login shell for Unix. And then I do set info, and that's it. So this information now is in the Active Directory. This attribute here, the UID number, that comes with the schema updates you did in the first step. So time for the first demo. I'll switch over to my demo machine. There's such a lot of buttons here. You have to come and see. There's a buttons and things, but I only am supposed to use one button here, and this is this one. Right? Yes. Okay. So first we are still on the Linux, still on the Windows side. So I'm doing this demo on a 2003 R2. So the schema is ready. And by the way, I recorded all the demos in case they won't function here. No, and for you to download them, you might have a look at my blog. The address is on the lower right side. As you can download them and replay them as often as you want. But give me a few days when I'm back home to upload them. And you have a look at the blog. Send the download link there. So now log in with a high security password. And here we have a normal directory structure for contoso.com and an employees OU and my two demo scripts. And the first thing we want to do is enable this anonymous access to the Active Directory. So I'm going to support tools, command prompt, and open the ADSI edit. Here we are. Configuration, services, Windows NT is just where you expected it. Yes, okay. And you go to properties, go one step down. There is this these heuristics. You say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 2. That's it. Easy enough, huh? Okay. So now we are able to set the anonymous access, and we have to do this. So we go to employees, right-click, properties, security tab. If you don't see the security tab here, you know how to get it. Yes. There's this few advanced features. You have to click it to see the security tab. So go and properties, security. So then we add the anonymous login read. And please check that it's inherited. Here it's not. It's this object only. So you go to edit, and so it goes to general objects. You might fine-tune this here, what anonymous is allowed to read or not. For the purpose of this demo, I just leave it on the default. Okay, and that's it. Now we're ready for creating some users. This is nearly the script that I showed you, but just create 4 users. That's me, my wife, my daughter, and my son. And that's just creating the users. So they should appear here now. Okay. And with the demo 2. You see I set a UID number. Can you read it from the back, or should I enlarge a little bit? I set the UID number, the Git number, the Unix home directory, the login shell. I set a very high secure password, and so the account disabled is false, so you can work with that and set info, so the action is live. And that's what we do now. Okay, so the account should be. So there's a kind of LDAP client, which is called LDP. If you go and check it, you have to connect, and normally you have to bind to your Active Directory. And whoever worked with LDP knows those 2 steps. I just do a connect to my local server. That's it. I don't do a bind, because there should be anonymous access allowed. Go to the organizational unit that we just used for creating our users. And as you can see, without binding, I have read access to the Active Directory to this organizational unit, and only to this. And you see the entries, UID number, Git number, and so on. So far for demo 1. Going back to my slides. So we finished the Windows part. That's all you have to do. If you remember, the first 2 parts have been a one-time preparation. Yeah, we check the schema, one-time job. We give Linux read access, one-time job. It never touches anymore. And then we fill attributes. That's a continuous job. So every new user you get, you have to enter his UID number. There's a way around this. I'll show you later, but for now, just take fill attributes, a continuous job. So now we're going to the dark side, to the Linux side of the show. There are 2 things we have to do. The first one is we have to configure name resolution service. Normally, a Linux system looks in a file that sits on the file system called passwd, and looks for a line that describes the user name, the UID, and the Git number, the home directory, the login shell, and so on. But there's mechanisms in all the Unix systems that says I can choose where to look at. It's this file, or it's LDAP, or it's NIS, or it's somewhere. Yeah? And we're just using this mechanism. And it sits in the mswitch.conf, which tells the order how to look. First in files, then over LDAP, then do a NIS, and so on. And the second one is a file that's called libnss ldap.conf. On some Linux distributions, it's called ldap.conf, like in Red Hat, it's called ldap.conf. And that tells the system where the LDAP server is and how to connect it. It's just those 2 parts. One is look for information in this and that order. The other one is if you're looking for LDAP, you might go to this server and ask him. Yeah. That's the 2 files you need. And down here you see the mswitch.conf, which just says compat, which is a kind of files. On Red Hat, I think it's called files. And after that, go for LDAP. Please choose this order, because if your Active Directory is not available, users can still log in if they have a local account. If you do it the other way around, you get a lot of timeouts before you recognize that the server is not online. So if you do it in this order, you shouldn't have any problems. The LDAP, that's quite easy, yeah? The LDAP conf is easy too. I must say that the things that I have on the slide is not a complete LDAP.conf file. You have it in the demos, and I'll write them on the blog, so you can just copy it from there. It's just to get an idea what information you have to put in here. You have to say which host to contact, which is my Active Directory domain controller, and you might and should define more than one host. Just leave a blank in between, because there might be implementations where the DNS service record lookup is supported, but it's not widely used. So you just enter static domain controller names here. The standard port, you can leave it out. Everything that's standard, you can leave out. You say a base, where he is allowed to look for, yeah? And other users around this up or in the side tree won't be found. Define a scope for doing sub-search or one-level search only. And you restrict things for login purpose. If you're using LDAP for login purpose, you restrict the UIDs to 500 and up, so that not an evil user can enter a 0 as a UID number, which is the root or the administrator on the Linux side. So you set a threshold there and say user IDs should have 500 up. Otherwise, I won't authenticate them over LDAP. The second part of the LDAP.conf is a mapping of attributes. Because although they are RFC compliant, they have other names. On the Unix world, for example, it's called a POSIX account, what you know as a user, or the POSIX group, that's called just group. Or UID, there's no such attribute. It's, for example, the SAM account name. UID number you find on both sides if you have the right schema. And home directory was already in use from Windows, because there's where your home directory says. So you have to use a Unix home directory attribute. And you can map anything to anything. So if you want to say, I want to put the home directory in the favorite drink attribute, so feel free, as long as the types match. Yeah, so on the left side should be integer, on the right side should be an integer. It should be a distinguished name on the left side, on the right side a distinguished name too. Otherwise this will not work. So that's it for name resolution. Did you remember, did you find anything client-specific in those two config files? No. So these config files are the same on every Linux client that you have. The order in which to look at, and the second one is where to look at. And that's the same for each client. So that's not very complicated, huh? You just do it once and distribute it all over your Linux client. Even in Linux, there are mechanisms to do this. So if you do a call like getEnd, passwd, and for my name, you should get a line back that gives the application that does the system call, gives information about the user. The application does not need to know where this information comes from. They cannot tell even. So this application thinks this information comes from the system. If it's a file, if it's an LDAP, if it's an IS, I don't care. Yeah? I have the information that I needed. This user is known. I have the name, service, or solution, so that's okay. If you do this, if you implement this while you're testing, please keep a second root shell open while you do this, because otherwise, if you do a typo or so, you block yourself out, and even root cannot log in anymore, because it's looking in the Active Directory for a user called root. Yes, and as long as you don't have it there, you cannot log in, for example. There's a caching daemon on most of the Linux distributions by default activated. That's called NSCD, Name Service Caching Daemon. Turn it off. You spend a whole time for looking for your configuration mismatch until you find that you still got the cached information. Yes. So turn it off while testing. If you have many users in your system, they will have a home directory under home. So if you do a listing of your home directory, we'll do a name resolution for each user in there. So you might not want to do this when you have 20,000 users there. Oh, by the way, we're using this at the University of Karlsruhe for 400 Linux clients and 20,000 users. So it's easy for even bigger environment. When you're using LDAP for authentication, that's an interesting point. You can do this too. We just did so far a name resolution, so the system knows about who you are or who the user is that comes. But also you can do an authentication over LDAP. So how does this work? It's this bind mechanism. If you go to an LDAP and say, hey, I'm user this and that, this is my password. So the LDAP says yes, no. So you can use this. You can use it. It's not an authentication of protocol by itself, the LDAP, but you can just go grab the user's input, send it to the LDAP server and say, now look, there's a user that claims to be this one, and he says he has this and that password. Is that correct? Bind me to you. So if the LDAP server says that's okay, you say, okay, I trust this mechanism and let the user in. It's just another way of authentication. But if you do this, keep in mind that the password is going over the net in clear text. So you should consider using SSL. And you have 3 more attributes in your LDAP conf saying which attribute I should use for matching the user. That's his SAM account name in this case. For example, you might use something else. And you might restrict this to a special user class, object class, user, so that machines or contacts or groups can log in. And you tell the LDAP, libNSS LDAP conf, that you're using an Active Directory password mechanism. So you see that the Linux side is already prepared for Active Directory. That's in there. And I'll show you in the demo, it even goes further. So that's it, and I think it's time for the next demo. The magic button is here. Okay. So, we're done with Windows. I'm starting this is Red Hat Enterprise Linux. I just installed it on Monday, actually. So it's quite up to date. And let's see what we do. There's this password file, which is the source of information for a Linux system. As long as the name resolution is concerned, the passwords are in another file. Yes, a file. And so you can see there is no user Ralph or Leo or Heike or Lucas there. So it's just that you don't think I'll fool you, you see. Even this getEnd system call does not return anything. If I enter root, you see that's the line that comes back. So every application that wants a name resolution does a getEnd system call of the password file and gets this line back here. You see it on the back? Yes. I like this. I like this in the zoom utility. That's great. You see the second line from the bottom. Okay, and also I have prepared in my temp folder. See here, this is the last 2 lines on the bottom. Here. This belongs to Heike and this belongs to Ralph, but it does obviously not belong to Heike. You see, this file here belongs to root, and this belongs to a user with a UID 10001. Yes. Normally, when you do a directory listing, this name resolution is done in the background, like it's when you open the security tab on Windows. Sometimes if you have slow domain controller answers, you see the SID for a second, and then you get the name. It's just the same mechanism here on the Linux side. And this information normally comes from the password file. But we want to change this. So let's have a look. We can do an LDAP search, for example. Client tools like LDAP, yeah. It's a little bit more complicated. I have to say which authentication to use, which scope I'm in, on which base I am. It's funny to see me doing typos, huh? Oh, not even one. So, okay, because it's employees. At least one. Nope. But at the end, there's a space in there, see? I hate this. You see, we got 4 entries, which is correct because we created 4 users, and there you saw the rest of the attributes of my sum. So now let's change that. We go into the LDAP.conf. And I already prepared that. You see the host, the port, and the stuff. And down here you see the mappings. And I did not enter that. Those mappings are in there already in this config file, so they are prepared. And even if you have services for Unix, well, that's the lower part here, you see the attributes are named in another way. It's MSSFU 3.0, it's Microsoft Services for Unix 3.0, which have been the same in 3.5. So you have to use this mapping if you have one of those old systems before R2, you see. Okay, so this is okay. And the other one is the msswitch.conf. I'm just adding here an LDAP. That's it. Nothing more to do. By the way, I saw a slide for the server core demonstration, and I would like to reuse the joke he made, because the wow ends here, you see? That's just a Linux command line, and it's you can use it in a graphic mode, but not in a virtual machine, of course. So that's it. We're finished. Want to see? Where's my get end? Whoops. There's the user, you see. Or the other way is the temp file. You see? The two files belong to the right persons, because now the name resolution can be done. So, that was easy, huh? Okay, we go a step further. I'll show you a login with this other mechanism. There's a mechanism on the Windows side called PAM. It's a pluggable authentication module. So you might have 2,000 authentication modules, and you put them in a special order, saying this has to be fulfilled, and this, and this. This might be fulfilled, but this is enough, and this is sufficient, but this has to be, and so on. You put it in the correct order, how a user has to authenticate, which conditions have to be fulfilled, and then the user is logged in. That's called PAM. And there are a lot of config files, you see. And one of them is called login. And imagine what it does. You define in which way the users can log in. So we define that authentication is sufficient if the PAM LDAP routine says, I know this user, password was correct. I'll show you the PAM a little more in detail later on. So for this moment now, this should be enough. I just stay in the editor, because if you do something wrong here, you won't be able to log in anymore. So use this with caution. Know what you're doing. I'm going to a second console where I have a login, and now I'll try. Okay, now I'm logged in. There's no user, Ralph W, on the local system. It's just in the Active Directory. You just created it, and we just filled in the attributes. We set the Linux, go over to this LDAP server and look for the name resolution and do an authentication against this LDAP server. And if this is okay, let the user in. So we're here. See, everything works fine, nothing more. Oh my, everything works. Fine so far. Huh? Remember, if you do this authentication stuff, you should use an SSL connection, of course. But this is local only, so no password is over the wire. So name resolution is done. Now the next part, configure Kerberos. Kerberos, oh, that's this mystic thing that runs in Active Directory and so. It's not quite wrong. It's mystic, but it's easy to configure. That's all you have to do. See? And by the way, it's the same on every Linux client. Again, yes, no client-specific information there. You just define the first is the default. The interesting part comes here under realms. Because Kerberos realms are always in uppercase letters. You're saying that your KDC, your key distribution center, is this machine, and your default domain is contosa.com, and there's a translation between the lowercase and the uppercase. That's all. Really, that's all. Not quite. This is a Heimdall implementation, by the way. There are two implementations of Kerberos in the Linux world. One is the Heimdall, one is the MIT. The Heimdall is used, for example, on Debian platforms, which is a distribution that's under Ubuntu, for example, which is getting more and more popular. and Red Hat uses the MIT implementation. So there are slight differences here, but most of the config files comes in both flavors. So they said this is for Heimdall only, and this is for MIT only. So it's the same config file on any platform you have. That's it. Easy so far. You're still with me? Yeah? You're feeling hot for getting out, going to a Linux terminal and connected? Sorry, we don't have any here. So you have to wait for Friday evening if you're at home. But don't forget what I said. Yeah. So let's join domain now. Huh? There are two ways to do this, as always. You can do it manually. That's a little bit more work. Can be done with a script, and it works on all tested platform. But those platforms include Hewlett Packard, Unix, because Red Hat, SUSE, Debian-based distributions. We have even on Solaris it works. So it's a wide variety of Linux distributions, and I think it should work on nearly all platforms. The other one is there's a file package, an application for Linux called Samba. I'll show you later on what Samba does. This makes it very easy, but you have to configure an application just for this task, just for joining domain. It makes it very easy, even easier than it was so far. So if that's possible, I don't think. And the drawback is it's not available on all platforms. Sometimes you have vendor-specific implementations that are missing some parts of it. Maybe on your platform you have to recompile it. Well, that's not very funny, to recompile this package. So I'll show you the manual way. By the way, those Samba guys, that's all the Linux developers, are mostly a little bit back in time. So this write solution does not work with the server 2008. So if you have a 2008 server, you have to do it manually. Yes. But it's not that hard, really, believe me. There is something that is shared between a Windows client that is a member of a domain and a domain controller. For the purpose of this session, let's call it just a shared secret. However it is built up and what's in there, we don't care, it's a shared secret. But in a Linux world and a covers what you call this a key tab. So we have to create a key tab. A key tab cannot stand alone somewhere in the air. It has to be bound to an object. Now you can use a user account or a computer account. Most of the how-tos that are out in the internet are doing this with a user account, because it doesn't matter if it's a user or if it's a machine account for logging in. I'll show you later in the demo that it's just very easy to use a computer account. You just have to enter the map user. You have to enter a $sign at the end, so that it gets a computer account out of it. And that's the line you have to enter, and that's the way where client-specific information comes in for the first time. This has to be done for each Linux client. But as it's only one or two positions where this client comes in, you see here Key1 and Key1. That's the only two things. Okay, the key tab file here. You can easily replace it by a command line argument. You give your script. So shouldn't be that hard. You should use, you have to use upper and lowercase as shown here, because this is the covers realm, and it's always in uppercase. You should protect this key tab, because this holds a shared secret. Everybody who has access to this key tab can act as a domain member of this Linux machine. So, copy this to the Linux client. I do the secure copy, or into the USB stick or whatever you want, and then you switch over to the Linux client. You go to this directory where this key tab is in, and there's a command that's called kt key tab utility, kt-util, easy to remember. And there's a read key tab, write key tab, quit. As easy as that. On a newer distribution on Debian, this kt-util does not provide a command shell, but it is just an application that needs command line parameters. So you might use a kt-util copy key1 key tab to curb5 key tab. That's it. So you can do this on a script. No need for a command line like this. If you have already a key tab on your Linux system, back it up. You might back up this key tab anyway, or you might rejoin your computer to your Linux computer to the main. And the place of this key tab might vary from distribution to distribution. In most of them, it's under etc curl5 key tab, like you see here, Intel. And that's it. It just joined a Linux computer to an active directory. Amazing enough, huh? Did you expect it so easy? No, huh? You did? Why are you here? Okay, so we joined the domain. Now we can log in. No, not quite ready. Because we have to tell our Linux system to use Kerberos for login. We just joined it to a domain, but it still sticks on in our demo for LDAP authentication, because that's what we configured. And that's a slide for the PAM, for the pluggable authentication module I told you. So let's go a little bit more in detail here. We have a little bit of time left so far. There are 4 types of PAM directives: auth, account, password, session. They are entered in different stages during your login. For example, the session part comes in when you're already logged in and takes care of something like home directory is present and sets some environment variables and so on. And the thing we are interested in is auth, for authentication, of course. You can and you should more than one pluggable authentication module. For example, you say, try it over Kerberos, and if that fails, go for the local system, or go for the local system, and if that fails, you might have a look at LDAP, or Kerberos, and then LDAP. You can choose the order in any way you want, but you shouldn't mind the order. I'll show you on the next slide why this is important. And here too, keep a root shell open while you're testing, so that you don't have to log in to make your changes rollback, because when you cannot log in, there's no way to do a rollback. And it's a good idea to back up the old config, because it's easier to restore from there. So there are 4 lines up here. The first line looks for if it's a security device, a secure console that I'm logging in. I can define this. I can set a file saying no logins permitted at the moment, because I'm doing some server maintenance as well. That's the second line. The third line is Unix authentication. It goes to the password file locally on the system. And the fourth is doing Kerberos. And you see the difference is just sufficient word in the third line here. And that means it's okay if the Unix authentication works. So don't go any further. It's okay, stop here, that's it. But that is not okay. Go on. But then the next line has to be fulfilled, because there's a required. So if you would change the third and fourth line, what will happen? Yes, in the third line, there would be a required for Kerberos. So if this does not work, because the user is unknown or the Kerberos server is not available, that's it. This is required. This is not fulfilled. The user is not logged in. On the next line, there would be a sufficient and the local Unix login, and the user would be logged in. But the system never comes to line number 4. It stops where it has a required that failed. So that's where you keep the mind. You keep your mind in the order of your lines here. So test it, and test it, and then let your users log in again. Just as a warning. So now we're doing this in a demo, hopefully. So we are back here. Everything is running so far. We can go out here. Now first we have to create this key tab. This key tab thing, you see. It's in here. I grab it out, and I'm not doing this type of thing anymore. You see. I'll just zoom in a little bit, hopefully, so you can. So here we are. It's for the most part, it's the thing that you saw on the slide. But here you have. Oops, you didn't see that. So, okay. Here, map user, That's a user account. It's not a user account, it's a computer account. Yeah. We give a password that we never need anymore, and give a principal type here, and an out file where you should put this file in. So one thing that we need is a computer account that we can bound to. So let's go to Linux clients, new computer, and name it just like the like the username, like the computer name is. It has to match Red Hat Enterprise Linux. Red Hat Enterprise Linux. That's it. Next, next. Finished. Now we do this key tab here. Just want to reset it. That's it. The interesting line is here saying key created in the middle. So now we have a key tab file. This is the secret for joining a domain. This is the thing that makes a member of a domain, divides a member of a domain from a non-member of a domain. It shares a secret with the domain controller. So we have to get this on the other side. There's a WinSCP somewhere hidden behind the here's here. Just a secure copy to the Linux side, because we don't have a file service available at this time now. No, that's the wrong one. That's the other demo machine. That should work too. Yes, I saved the password. Yes, yes, it's there. Okay. Log in. First time. Okay. Here the session starts. On the right side we have our Linux system, and on the left side is the local machine. It looks like the Norton commander, if you remember this thing. So we grab it, move it over, copy. Yes, I did the demo once. Yeah. So, okay, it's there. It's finished. This is the thing that you have to do for each client, but this command line for doing the key tab can be scripted. The creation of the computer account can be scripted. And even this secure copy can be scripted, because it has a command line. So you cannot do it in one script or in 3 scripts that call each other. I don't care. So, and on the other side, here, we now have this key tab file, the last entry on this file list. All we have to do is use this kt-util, so read key tab, and that's one, up to key tab. And we have to write the key tab to key tab. Yeah, side, thank you. Do a list. There is the host principal, and quit. So, have a look at that's the first step. The key tab is securely transferred. It's on its position where it has to be. We're now looking for the config file, if that's okay. This is the one that's the same on every machine. You see, it looks slightly different from the demo that I have, the slide that I had. The main part is the same. It's here the realms part. Where's my domain controller, and what's my domain real name, all this stuff. So that's okay. What we have to do is to tell the system to use Kerberos as a login. So we're going to the PAM config login thing, you see. And I'll prepare this here. I just comment out the LDAP authentication and do the Kerberos implementation here. So, and that's it. I'll switch over. We can test it before we log in. Kinit is the command to initialize Kerberos and to give me a ticket back. So I can say kinit administrator at contoso.com. And it fails. And why is this? I planned it, sorry. I should have said that before, because nobody believes me now. There's a there's a trick in covers. The time difference is only allowed 5 minutes difference between the two clocks on your two machines. 5 minutes is the default. You can change it in the main policy. 5 minutes, when you restart a virtual machine, a virtual PC without any additions, the Linux additions do not work on all the parts. The clock skew is too great, so we have to set the date. And this is, what do we have today? 16? 15? Oh yeah, I'll be on my time. So it should be 16:36. I have to speed up a little bit and do the same again. And voila, it works. Believe me, here's my ticket. So I have a Kerberos ticket. So what you do with the Kerberos ticket? What you do? Oh, authenticate. That's it. Sorry, try it on this one here. Here we are. See? I just logged in a Linux client using pure Kerberos authentication. I have a Kerberos ticket I can use as used to be from the Windows side. So if I have a Mozilla, for example, which is compiled with a Kerberos option, I could just use the Mozilla and go to an IIS and say use Windows authentication, and it will work. It will log me in using my Kerberos ticket. This is a ticket granting ticket, so I can go with this ticket to the KDC and say, give me a session ticket for this and this service. Go there, authenticate, it works. So far for this. Any questions so far? So keep them in mind at the end. Oh, no.
Dealing with the ticket, anonymous authentication.
Yes.
Also configured the system with a computer which will allow Kerberos authentication. Why is anonymous configuration still needed?
Well, the question was why the anonymous authentication possibility is needed in the Active Directory, because I'm now doing a Kerberos authentication. There's one step before this user is logged in. The system makes a look at your directory service to find your distinguished name and authenticates you with your distinguished name. I don't know if anyone of you is familiar with the Novell system. That was this company that also had a directory services in former times. The users had to enter their complete distinguished name to log in. That's what you save here, and what Windows, by the way, does automatically when you log in. It takes your UID, and that's the reason why your relative distinguished name has to be unique in your directory. It takes it, searches your domain for your full qualified distinguished name, the complete thing, yes, and authenticates you with that distinguished name. And that's a step that happens here too. But that is done as an anonymous user. So this is why anonymous access has to be enabled on the directory service. This first step, finding this user that is about to log in the directory service, this is done anonymous. You can change that, but it's standard open LDAP behavior. You can change it and say use this user anytime. Yeah? But this is one step before the user is authenticated. Just searching for this account. I have a very tight timetable. I'm there for a Q&A just after the slides. Okay? Keep it in mind. I remember you. You'll be the first on the mic. Okay? Everyone else, let's queue up. So I think that's all in demo 3 we had. We did the login, so this machine is no longer needed. Just go down and going back to the demo. Okay. Some warning and notes. Here's the synchronized time thing. Maybe you believe me now that it was planned. In a multi-domain forest, you might want to add some lines to the LDAP-conf that your system is not running around all your domains and looking for a user. So referrals no, bind policy soft or reconnect tries, which does handling if one of the domain controllers is not available to switch over in a short amount of time to the next one. And You also might use a global catalog for the name resolution. Yeah? So you have to enter the global catalog and, of course, the global catalog port in the LDAP-conf. On some systems, there are two different config files for doing the name resolution and doing the authentication stuff over LDAP. So this PAM module has another config file than the name service lookup. So most of the attributes are the same. But if you have two files, you can do things like, for the name resolution, I do plain search, and for the authentication, I do SSL search. Because there's no password going over the net when you're doing a name resolution, and it's a little bit faster if you don't do SSL. Linux, it depends on the session settings in the PAM config. Sometimes it needs a home directory, so you create one for each user. You use an auto mounter with the NFS services, for example. There's other PAM modules, make home directory, that looks for a home directory. If it's not there, it creates it, and the user is logged in this home directory. Otherwise, it might fail. The login might fail just because there's no home directory. And as a last warning, I think I already mentioned that you should keep another shell open while testing. Yes, it saves you a lot of time. So we made it. We're through it. There is plenty of time left. I think I figured something. I forgot about this Samba thing. Yeah. So we add an extra bar and look for this Samba. What is Samba doing? Samba is the short form for SMB. Yes, so it has nothing to do with dancing around. You see, I can't dance, but I can do Samba. There are some applications inside Samba which offers file and print services for Linux. There's an SMBD, and that's the original Samba daemon. Daemon is something like a service, yeah, and in the Unix world. MBD for NetBIOS name service, which is still needed there. WinBind is an application that handles UID and SID mappings. So we're talking of the same user. I'll tell you something about this later. TestPalm and so on. Net. There's a utility called Net, like you use it from the command line in Windows. Some other utilities there. SMB client is the other way around. So you go from a Linux platform and access a share on a Windows server. Please, please, please do not use versions 2 point something, or you'll be back on the LM authentication level. Yes, that's something this Nintendo operation systems, like Steve Riley told them, Nintendo system. I like this. Windows 95, 98, and all this stuff. That's an LM authentication. That's very, very, very poor. Don't do it. Yes. Use version 3. You're a little bit more up to date than them. And there are sometimes non-free versions available from Samba where you get a consulting with it, or for example, big companies doing file services ship their file servers, their appliances, or their version of Samba in it. There you stick to their compilation, and you have to deal with them to add Kerberos support or something like that, for example. And they might be a little bit behind times. What Samba 3 can do and what it cannot. Yes, it can join an Active Directory as a member server. I just did it, by the way. There was a Samba implemented on the machine. It can act as an NT4 PDC. So you don't need a Windows server for building up a domain. But when you really want to go back to NT4, I think you're at the wrong breakout session here, yeah? Wrong conference. It can also play wins for NetBIOS name resolutions. It can use different backend information storages. You can say, my user data is in an LDAP backend, it's in a database backend, MySQL, or okay, I said database, something other, Oracle or something like that, yes. And it can provide printer drivers. So if you have your old printers that are attached to Unix machines, for example, you can deliver Windows printer driver, just like you are used to it on the Windows side. You connect your printer, says, oh, you have to install the drivers. Do you want to? Yes. And all this mechanism can be done over Samba. It cannot act as an NT4 BDC because there is no replication. So if you try to set Samba as a domain controller, it's a bad idea, because you only have one controller, one domain controller. There's no backup, DC, nothing. If the machine breaks down, your information is gone, as long as you don't have it in a backend somewhere. It can act as a Windows 2000 domain controller in some very, very experimental versions without any group policy or stuff like that. So if you really, really want to do that, you should even think about it twice and twice and twice again. It cannot replicate WINs too. So if you use it as a WINs server and it's gone, all your clients have to reconnect to the WINs server to re-register in the WINs. So it's just for getting an idea that the Samba guys can do a lot. But well, we are meanwhile just before Windows Server 2008. They're still at NT4, so it's a little bit difference between. But if you want, sometimes those guys look for me like blind guys in a tunnel, but touching with a stick somewhere, looking to find the black cat in there. And when something squeezes, they think they found the cat, and then they implemented the code. But you never can be sure that it's that they really find completely what they have to do. Okay, now look at the configuration for Samba. Have a look at this. You can users add in there, can authenticate against a local file, against LDAP, and use WinBind. Again, this magic WinBind. Just wait one more slide, I think, and I'll explain what it is. Passwords local. They can ask a domain controller. Yes, that's a funny feature, saying don't use any passwords. Look, there's a domain controller. The bad part on this is you have to have your users locally. Only the authentication is done remotely. So you have to have two user repositories. So every user that comes in, you have to add on two systems. I can use Kerberos. That's what we want to do here. Every configuration, all the configuration for this complete suite is in one file, is in smb.conf. And it looks like the old INI style. Yes, it has those brackets and sections, global printers, temp, home for every share. You can make another section, and you quite get used to it very soon. You can use Samba with ADDS and Kerberos, and these are the steps you have to do for it. You have to install and configure your Kerberos on your Linux machine. You have to install Samba and WinBind, some application there. Those two in combination do some of this magic stuff we just had. You see here down here, you don't have to configure your name resolution. WinBind does that for you. You have to do this join domain stuff with creating the key tab file and copying it over to the machine and putting it in the right place and stuff like that. And adopt the Kerberos config file. And so that's all that Samba does for you. There's a command if you installed your Samba correctly, that's called net ads join, and it does all this magic stuff. That's like a Windows XP client where you say, now enter domain, join domain, and that's the same here. Filling the attributes. It's one of those other tasks we already did. You can do this with WinBind. WinBind can do a dynamic mapping of SID to user ID. So if a user comes, first says, look, I have this SID. And WinBind says, I don't know you because you're not in my table. I give you the UID 10001. So next time the user comes, says, look, my SID. WinBind says, oh, I have you in my table. You have the UID 10001. And you can access all the files that user 10001 can access. Next user comes, say, I don't know your SID. So you get a new 10002. This new user can only access files that belongs to user 10002, not 10001 files, of course. But when your WinBind table gets crushed, and there's no replication mechanism, by the way, WinBind starts from scratch. So if this formerly second user comes back and says, I want to access my files, here's my SID, WinBind says, sorry, my table was corrupted, I had to start new. You get the UID 10001. So this user has access to files that formerly belonged to another user, because those files still belong to user 10001. But meanwhile, it's another user, because we had to restart the mapping. So that might be a bad idea, and you should make backups of your WinBind database if you want. Or you fill in the attributes in your Active Directory and leave out this WinBind completely. That's the way I would prefer if I were on your side. Okay. Here's an example configuration. As I already said, those configurations do not work. It's just to get an idea what you can do with it. You can, for example, here for this WinBind, say, use this area for mapping. You have security is ADS. The funny part always is encrypt passwords is true. Okay, it's the default, I must say. But even that someone can have the idea to not encrypt passwords, that's funny. Yeah? Okay, and here you have some WinBind settings that you can really, as I said, completely leave out. And I think I have the demo for Samba installing. We have 9 minutes left so far, I think, yes. I see green light here, so I'm in time. I'm switching over. So since I shut down my Red Hat machine, I'll show you that it's the same on another distribution. So I start up a Debian installation. Debian, as I said, is a distribution that lies under Ubuntu and a lot of other distributions that come in appliances, for example. And we'll take a quick check over the config files here that we have it all. 5.conf, that looks good. It's another system, but it's the same with realms and domain realm. And you see only for Heimdall coverers, see it up here. So that's what we do. What else do we have? And a switch.conf. Okay, we have to add this LDAP here. You see the file is the same. We are now in Debian, no longer in Red Hat. The same file. What else do we need? The LDAP conf. This is called libnss LDAP conf here. And here's exactly the same parameters, map attributes, things, all the stuff here. I don't need to change anything here. What else do we need? Nothing more. Yes, the Samba configuration fits in etc Samba. And we have smb.conf. No, .conf, I said. Here we are. And you see, these are the settings. And by the way, this is the same on every Linux client. Again. But the only thing that's different from Linux to Linux client is the keytab file. The rest is the same on all your Linux machines. No matter how many you have, 1, 10, 100, 400. Yeah. You see, define a workgroup in NetBuyer's name, security in the realm. Yes, you say use the covers key tab. Yes, that's a funny parameter that is not set by default, but it allows you to use the same covers key tab file that the Samba will generate for logging in on your system. Otherwise, the Samba creates a key tab file and places it somewhere in the file system. You never find it again. Therefore, you're not able to log in on the machine because you only can have one key tab file per computer. Of course, yeah. A computer can only join the domain once. And if you want to use this key tab, you have to know where it is. So your applications log in or Samba access the same key tab file. So use covers key tab, yes. We use the Win server on the domain controller. It's not a good idea to use Samba as a Win. So we dropped out every other thing. Do not claim to be domain master, local master, preferred master, nothing. OS level is 0 means you will never win an election on the NetBIOS level, just 0 star. The log file would be a log file for each machine that comes and connects. That's the %m at the end. It's replaced by the machine name that comes and wants to contact Samba. And there we have defined a temp file directory. It's just a temp folder, and I will try to access this from the Windows side. But first, we have to join the computer to the domain. It was a Red Hat machine that we joined, not the Debian machine. So to do this as an administrator, from the Linux side, I look for a ticket. Administrator at composer.com. And again, okay. So let's 16:55 meanwhile. Just a service for me to give you the time, the actual time, see? So again, here we are. Now admin has a password, and if I'm now going, say, net ADS join, that's the point where we had to go to the Windows side to put this KT pass line in to make a secure copy of the key tab to the Linux side, to use this key tab KT util, if you remember, to get the key tab on the right place. It's all in net ADS join. So, and there it is, join Debian to realmcomposer.com. I say it's much easier to do it with Samba. But to remember, Samba is not available on all platforms with Kerberos and LDAP support, so you might have to recompile it. And if you don't use your your Linux machine as a file server, you just install the application to do a net join. So if it's what you want to do it. The other thing is doing this key tab thing. You get used to it. Yeah. So we have this. We want to go over to Active Directory in computers, and we should find here this Debian machine, which just joined the domain. And there. So what I can show you, for example, is that accessing this Samba from Windows with this Kerberos ticket, no more authentication needed. I'll show you, but not as administrator, but as another user. Since I only have one demo machine, and that's the domain controller, I have to add this user to the server operators, so the user can log in. And we have to prepare this Debian machine for logging in. Starting up the Samba. By the way, we can test if we can still log in here. Yeah? Whoops. Why is this? Yeah, of course, I forgot. But I have this shell open. You see how important it is to keep a shell open? Did I tell you? Yes, I think I told you. We have to tell the system what modules we use for authentication. And you see, there's no Kerberos authentication available. But now I uncomment the lines, save it, go here, say this user again. Oops. Oh, here we are. Okay, one more typo in the password. So now we're logged in, and we have a list. Yeah, we already have a ticket. So you see, it took me just 5 minutes to make this Debian machine as a member of the Active Directory, to enable the users to log in with the password they're used to, with a name they're used to, getting a Kerberos ticket. They can access all the resources they're used to access. If you have an application that uses Kerberos, not all of the applications have Kerberos support included. You might have to look around, or might have to recompile some of these. But your Linux guys will be happy, really happy to help you in this way, really. So just give them a login. They might get used to it, and they're happy to help you with recompiling the stuff. They want to go in the system, and they want to try it. I'm absolutely sure. So all we have to do now is to start the Samba client. There's 2 more minutes. That should be enough. I'm running out of time, I know. This is the init.d, smb. This is Samba. Samba start. Okay. We go over to the Windows side, logging out and logging in. So there's a small utility called KerbTray, which started first, that gives you information what Kerberos tickets you have under Windows, just to show you that there are no tricks in there from cache credentials or something like that. I should have logged in once before. So I think it's in the resource kit. Okay. So here's this utility. You can say list tickets, and you only got those host tickets at the moment. And the client principal up there. So and now we're going for this Samba machine. So I think this is the file share. Debian01. And you see already what happened here. See? He already got to the Debian client over there, looked for all the shares that he has, and presents it to you. I did not enter any username or password so far, you see. So I connect to this share and look at the curve tray. And there it is. Service ticket for my Samba Linux machine. Okay. Oh, thank you. That's it. Oh, great. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. So to put this to an end, we have everything fulfilled. We are in the center. And as a wrap-up, if you're only going for Samba for file shares or so, you use the Kerberos and Winbind, for example, you don't have to have any problems of filling attributes, doing schema updates, or something else. If you want to use login and Kerberos for other applications, use ALDAP and Kerberos in combination on Samba. One-time things you have to do for your Forester domain is check your schema and create the read access. I don't care how you do it. There can be a lot of discussions up to this midnight or so, what's better and what's not. And for each Linux client, you have to install the LDAP client, install Kerberos, configure the PAM. Most of the config files are the same on all your clients. Only the key tab file has to change. Some related context is about, I think, 400 pages solution guide for security and directory services for Unix, where you can all read this here too. There's a tool if you want it even easier than we did it. It is possible, maybe. There's Vintella, formerly Vintella, now Quest utility. The Quest guys are down in the exhibition hall, so you might give them a visit and ask for their tools. And Scott Lowe's blog is another good source for information. And I will start my blog, because everybody has a blog, so I have to use blog too. So you saw and hopefully recorded this thing. And there's another thing, there's an interoperability by design. This is part of the Interop initiative from Microsoft, in the Interop Vendor Alliance. They're also at the exhibition hall. I think it's one of the most best kept secrets on Microsoft, but they have it. Go down, it's booth 10D10. They have nice t-shirts there, so you might go if you don't have already one. The obvious TechNet resources, and please go out and go to the feedback terminals. And as an information for you, I asked the technical guys. They said me there's no relevance. It does not enhance your chances to win this thing if you give me a 9, but I'm not quite sure. So maybe you'll find out yourself. Okay. So thank you very much for your.